So you take them on further into the ring while you've got space. Don't rush, Joe. Clever as you come in. Hands in position, Josh, ready to block. That's it. That's better, that's nice. Nice.
Paul, this year on Netflix.
Thank you for having me. Well, you got to give credit to Jake and his team. They reached out to me, to be fair. And it was a great opportunity for me. So it's an opportunity for me to fight. I wanted to take 12 months out of the game. And I'd done that. And then it was time to get back to work. So I was planning on fighting anyway. And actually, I would have been fighting this weekend.
One of the best heavyweights ever. But I believe that fighting a smaller man is oftentimes harder as a heavyweight because of the speed difference and because of the foot speed, because of the angles, because of the head being off of the center. And so all of that power is great, and he's knocked people out. I just have to avoid that one shot.
Fresh footage has surfaced, capturing Anthony Joshua reportedly sparring alongside Jake Paul. The moment feels raw, it feels sweaty. It becomes the kind of scene fight fans dream about. Two names inside the ring together. No promos, no PR, just the weight of two bodies pushing against each other.
Little bit of pressure. Let them come up. Defend, counter. One shot or two. Don't go chasing. Stay on your...
Right away, the moment pulls you in. AJ steps forward with that unmistakable presence he brings. He stands towering, shoulders broad, chest owning the frame. He appears built like a tank, somehow trained to glide like a dancer. Jake moves in lighter on his toes with that lively footwork that reveals his history facing smaller, quicker opponents. The contrast feels cinematic. One man seems sculpted like a fortress. The other carries tension and coil. The early exchanges come across polite yet electric. A probe jab lands from Jake.
On your back foot, just stay there. Get used to that pressure, Josh. That's it, that's nice. Stay on your back foot though, don't go chasing on it. Okay, change over. You're on your back foot now, Josh. Let them come. Calm. Block off.
AJ counters with a measured right that seems capable of folding a mailbox. Then the rhythm shifts. Someone in the corner shouts adjustments. The sparring is intentional, not chaotic. You can sense both sides testing distance and timing. There are moments when the gloves separate and a wet thud echoes. You feel the force of the punches through the screen. AJ lands a thudding body shot that makes Jake bend at the waist. The camera cuts, and a trainer mutes the action before Jake slides back to his feet, grinning as if it were all part of a plan. Later, Jake snaps a quick left hook that grazes AJ's temple. It is not a knockout strike, but the kind that demands a head turn and a quick reset. Both fighters display respect in simple gestures. They touch gloves between rounds and circle each other like predators weighing options. The footage also retreats to reveal what highlight reels skip. You notice the breath, the slight choke on air after a string of combinations. You see AJ's trainers leaning in with corrections: tuck the chin. Keep the lead shoulder higher. Step off the line. You see Jake's corner clapping rapid combinations to drive pace. There is also the tactical homework angle. Coaches and fighters see differently than the casual viewer. For them, this footage is a gold mine. They mark tendencies: who leaves the left open after a jab, who drops the right on the back step when fatigue sets in. Any small habitual movement becomes a potential opening. That is the frightening part for the fighters. What looks like a thrilling moment for fans could translate to a fatal weakness on fight night. As they say, size matters. Jake Paul is in serious peril versus Anthony Joshua. The unusual matchup appeared shortly after Netflix canceled the Paul vs. Davis bout on November 14. The size difference between Paul and Davis, the WBA 135-pound champion, sparked safety concerns. Those worries escalated so much that the Georgia Athletic and Entertainment Commission refused to sanction the bout, forcing relocation from Atlanta to Miami. With Davis gone, Paul now faces a far larger test in Joshua. But just how vast is the gap? Paul, standing 6 feet 1 inch, is naturally a cruiserweight. The division caps at 200 pounds. Recent weigh-ins illustrate the picture. Stack that against Joshua, 6 feet 6 inches, a heavyweight mainstay for nearly a decade. In his last 3 fights, he tipped 251 pounds versus Otto Allen and 252 pounds against both Francis Ngannou and Daniel Dubois. He also boasts an 82-inch reach. Even with Joshua limited to 245 pounds, Paul still concedes a massive size advantage the moment he steps into the ring. Meanwhile, Paul said on YouTube, they said, "Fight a real boxer." They said, fight someone your size. They said, fight a world champion. We examined a long list of potential opponents. You wanted bigger. How about twice as big? Literally, twice the size of Gervonta Davis. Paul isn't blind to the danger of facing Joshua, easily the toughest opponent he's ever faced. After padding his record with UFC veterans and mid-level journeymen, he now meets a legitimate heavyweight with lethal one-punch knockout power. Paul said about Joshua, two-time heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, while AJ won Olympic gold, I was filming Vines in high school. AJ is a knockout artist with fights ending in seconds. I won't lie, I'm a little scared, he added. And yes, little Josh is signed to my enemy, Eddie Hearn. I know Eddie and naysayers say I wouldn't take this fight. Talk is cheap, my friends. But you're not alone. Even my friends and family couldn't believe I was taking this fight. Despite knowing the risks, Paul insists he's ready to shock the world. Paul said, make no mistake. This is the biggest fight of my career. I'm walking into the lion's den. I'm doing something no one else has done. I, Jake Joseph Paul, will knock out, defeat, and embarrass Anthony Joshua on Friday, December 19th, live on Netflix. Paul faces his toughest challenge yet, having mostly fought limited experience opponents, often older, smaller, or both. Unsurprisingly, oddsmakers heavily favor Joshua, FanDuel listing him a staggering -1,200 over Paul. For the first time, Paul enters as a clear underdog. The closest was his 2023 clash with Tommy Fury, a slight favorite, ultimately losing via split decision. Current odds paint a stark picture. Joshua carries an implied 93% chance of victory, meaning a bettor must risk $1,200 to win $100. This isn't Joshua's first high-profile spectacle. In 2024, he delivered a second-round knockout against former UFC heavyweight Francis Ngannou. Since September 2024 defeat by Daniel Dubois, Joshua hasn't returned to the ring. Daniel Cormier was visibly stunned, praising Jake's courage, noting no set parameters for this fight. The result directly impacts both fighters' professional records. The problem child, with high knockout risk, will either succeed or fail. Daniel Cormier, former light heavyweight and heavyweight UFC champion, commented to Logan Paul about the Jake Paul-Anthony Joshua fight on November 19. When Logan confirmed the fight was real, Cormier suggested rules for Joshua. He agreed with Logan that nothing stops Joshua from treating Paul like Ngannou and warned MMA fighters not to underestimate Paul as a boxer. Cormier emphasized Paul spent 5 years focused on boxing with quality coaches and partners, improving substantially. He added that if Paul is hurt, he would know how to clinch, protecting himself when in danger.
It's real.
There's got to be some rules in place for Anthony not to.
Dude, I don't think there's rules.
Come on.
I swear to God.
I keep telling people this, right? And this is where people fucking up, especially these MMA dudes. I keep saying, stop treating Jake like he's not a boxer.
Yeah.
It's been 5 years now of pure boxing with great coaches and great training partners. He's gotten a lot better.
He's gotten a lot better.
He can fight, man.
Yeah, but what about Anthony Joshua, man?
That's bad, bro. Hey, Laura was like,
Say that like that.
Cause bro, like Francis went and fought him.
Oh, I said, Jake, did you see what he did to Francis? He's like, Francis is light work too.
Here's also, oh my God, yeah, he is kind of crazy. Francis wasn't training boxing at the level.
Yeah, we get it.
Because I would imagine if Jake gets hurt, he knows how to hold like a boxer. Because in boxing, you know, you got to go clinch when you get hurt. Francis was kind of like just standing there. Listen to me right here. Let me tell you this. He fights Anthony Joshua with no parameters in place. Y'all better give Jake Paul his credit.
Yeah.
I will.
Cormier concluded by saying that if Paul faced Joshua with no special parameters, people should give Paul credit for his bravery, and he himself would do so. Finally, Cormier acknowledged that his view of Paul's ring savvy didn't eliminate the chance that Joshua could still find a way to hurt him. Jermaine Franklin argued that Jake Paul was making a mockery of boxing by attempting what he saw as the near-impossible challenge of fighting Anthony Joshua in a heavyweight bout. Franklin went the full distance with Joshua in 2023, narrowly losing to Dillian White via a disputed majority decision the year prior. When Joshua's bout with YouTuber-turned-fighter Jake Paul was confirmed, Franklin remained unimpressed. I think it's rubbish. I understand it's for money, so it is what it is, but I don't think it's needed. I understand Jake Paul brings money into the sport, but boxing's got to stop letting him do all this, Franklin told Sky Sports. Paul, a cruiserweight still early in his professional career, has faced notable opponents, claiming victory over former middleweight champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., but also experiencing defeat at the hands of Tommy Fury. He fought the legendary 58-year-old Mike Tyson in his only heavyweight bout, which became a major draw. He has, however, never faced someone like Anthony Joshua. The 36-year-old London 2012 Olympic gold medalist has also twice held the title of Unified World Heavyweight Champion. Joshua's weight will be limited, but he faces Paul wearing official competition gloves, not exceeding 245 pounds. I never heard of a catchweight at heavyweight, Franklin said dismissively. He warned it could harm Joshua's reputation. He said it hurts him, but at this point in his career, he probably wouldn't make that money from a fight. Outside of that, though, there's really no point. He said of Jake, "You're not going to get respect as a boxer until you act like a boxer." Jake's coming in and making a mockery of the sport. A complete mockery of it. Now, what he does with other fighters like Serrano, he appreciates. She's a real fighter, but Jake isn't. Doesn't feel natural. Doesn't feel real. Former UFC welterweight champion Tyrone Woodley, who faced Jake twice in 2021, believes Paul's surprising choice to fight former unified heavyweight champion Joshua is driven less by rivalry with Joshua and more by competition with his brother, Logan Paul. Woodley sees the fight as fueled by personal ambition, not boxing tactics. The former champion argues Jake Paul's urge to go big steers him toward the riskiest bout of his career, possibly intended to eclipse his older brother. Speaking to new betting sites, Woodley said Jake Paul always takes massive risks. He explained that Jake's brand is about going big, and he doesn't play it safe like KSI. Woodley added that Jake suffers from little brother syndrome and is only fighting Joshua to outshine Logan. He also said Joshua's legacy won't be affected, that he didn't fix his fight with Paul, could have earned more if he had won, and that AJ's weak chin is Jake's saving grace. Finally, he warned that Joshua's overconfidence could be his downfall. Even though Paul enters as a massive underdog against one of boxing's most decorated heavyweights, Woodley argues fans shouldn't dismiss him entirely. He highlights Joshua's history of vulnerabilities and cautions that the former champion's overconfidence could open the door for a shocking upset. Woodley's perspective adds layers to an already divisive matchup, one that ignited global debate over spectacle versus sport and how far Jake Paul is willing to push his ambitions in boxing. Tyron Woodley added, his whole brand is about going big. Not only is he facing a former heavyweight champion, but he's also stepping in on just 2 weeks' notice. Unlike Tank, this opponent presents a much tougher challenge. He continued, I love the fight, and you've got to give him major credit. He had the guts to take this on with just 2 weeks' notice. He didn't feel Tank's absence with an easy opponent. He went straight into a far tougher fight with barely any time to adjust mentally, and you have to respect him for making a move like that. It's insane. Absolutely lunatic. Woodley said it was classic little brother syndrome. Logan had been the star first, and Jake had been in his shadow. Not insignificant, but not the center of attention. He recalled a celebrity basketball game in LA where Logan was on the court and Jake watched from the sidelines. Woodley added that when they began dabbling in celebrity boxing as a bucket list venture, Jake made a decisive leap. As Woodley put it, he effectively said, fuck it, and began taking on real fighters. That's where the difference became clear. He went on to say he believed Jake's legacy would remain intact as long as he kept moving toward the finish he envisioned, and only Anthony Joshua knew how his own story would end. If that ending matched Joshua's vision, nothing could tarnish his legacy. He added, I don't think this fight tops Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. My thought was, if even a 1% chance existed that prime, 25 Mike Tyson showed up in that ring, it would have been absolute chaos. And then you'd see those Instagram clips where it looked like he still had it. Man, that felt like a far bigger fight. Every fight carries real risk. Take Andy Ruiz, for instance. Most didn't give him a chance. You can't compare this fight to Francis Ngannou. Ngannou is a heavy, powerful heavyweight, but slow and not very agile. Against Anthony, he stood right in front, barely moving his head, and got caught with a shot. Anyone can get hit in that situation. Ngannou simply hadn't experienced that before. Woodley said, I'm not saying Jake Paul has either, but he brings a different element. He has power, agility, and a sharp mind, but he's a little reckless. He's taking a fight most think he's crazy to take. Yet he's smart enough to prepare right. I don't see this as a massacre or mismatch. Jake isn't small, and he's been steadily growing. Look at his physique. He keeps developing. Every time we see him, his size keeps increasing. Woodley explained his reasoning. Heavyweights take hard shots in the ring and sparring, and that damage accumulates over time. If you put a smaller, fearless, agile power puncher in front, someone who can clip you and snap your chin anytime, you can't write that fighter off, they have nothing to lose. He added the most dangerous opponent is one with their back against the wall, fully confident, and he wouldn't be shocked if the fight turned out differently from expectations. Woodley argued Paul's problems weren't obvious, like power or knockouts, but subtler, jab, footwork, head movement, rhythm. In other words, being outboxed, precisely where Anthony Joshua could dominate. He added, "My first thought, a single power shot from Anthony Joshua isn't what makes this fight one-sided. Look at Jake's only loss. It wasn't because his opponent had knockout power. Tommy Fury couldn't crush a grape in a fruit fight. His punches were soft as pillows, yet he outjabbed Jake. His pace, work rate was another level, and Jake couldn't land that right hand." The most startling revelation came from Saudi boxing chief Turki Alshik, who openly stated he wants Anthony Joshua to knock out Jake Paul. He made the comment during an interview on The Boxing Voice, sparking widespread discussion as fans worry about Paul's safety. Earlier this year, Jake Paul had called out Joshua on his own show, BS with Jake Paul. At the time, many doubted the fight would materialize, but now it's officially confirmed. Turki Alshik expressed desire for Anthony Joshua to destroy Jake Paul in the upcoming fight. He explained that a Joshua knockout would be a relief, removing the headache of Paul. However, Alshik added that if Paul somehow wins, it would mean Joshua is finished and Paul deserves an official boxing ranking. He also voiced confidence Joshua has what it takes to knock Paul out. He mentioned wanting the fight to feel like 991, signaling Joshua should be the undeniable favorite. While uncertain if Edgar Berlanga could knock out Jake Paul, he's confident Joshua has the power. Many analysts believe Anthony Joshua could secure a swift victory, potentially stopping Jake Paul in the first round thanks to size and power. However, up-and-coming heavyweight Lawrence Okolie thinks the fight might go the distance. He told reporters that Joshua might not go for an early knockout in the first 30 seconds. However, if Jake Paul begins landing punches, the dynamic could shift, making the fight far more intriguing.
I think, hats off to both of them for getting very well paid. I do want to go in and work with Jake Paul in preparation for this fight and preparation for mine. It'll be good to. I need to know what he sees that makes him think this is a good idea. That's one I'm very difficult to know. And then number two, it's like I want him to feel what it's like to be in there with a big, strong, world-class heavyweight before the day, because I don't want him to get hit with the first jab and it's a whole new sensation. So, and you never know. I think there's some game plans that he could cause a bit of trouble. Do you know what I mean? But there's three I see. One of which is, bear in mind, AJ is not I'm going to come out and get this over in one round kind of guy. He does do it, don't get me wrong, but that's based off of other people's work. So when you see AJ versus Ngannou and him were having a fight before AJ started landing the great right hands off of...
Okolie said from his training base in Dubai that he wanted to help Jake Paul and give him a chance, and that an offer was on the table for him to go out to Puerto Rico. He added that although he had a fight coming up, he would go for a couple of weeks to try to find out what made Paul believe he could get in there with a 250 pounds Olympic gold former two-time world heavyweight champion in front of millions on Netflix. Maybe Paul had a secret he did not know, and Okolie wanted to know before the fight. All eyes are fixed on December 19th. This showdown has quickly become one of the most talked about boxing events of the year, as fans wonder whether Anthony Joshua will dominate Jake Paul or if Paul will pull off another stunning upset. Most fans believe Jake Paul may have taken on more than he can handle. Joshua stands 5 in taller, outweighs him by roughly 50 pounds, assuming Paul doesn't bulk up from his usual 200 pounds fighting weight to 227 as he did for his bout with Mike Tyson, and brings far greater experience in training in the ring. Paul's critics cannot claim that Joshua is too old to take on the 28-year-old former YouTube phenomenon because Joshua is only 36 years old. Though age may be catching up with him, there's a strong argument that Joshua's prime is behind him. What's undeniable, however, is that his power remains intact, evidenced by the fearsome knockout he delivered to former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou on March 8, 2024. Okolie noted that as a bona fide heavyweight and the WBC's #1 contender who had sparred with both Paul and Joshua, he was not backing Paul to win, but did think the American could give Joshua a few headaches. He warned that problems for Paul would begin if he managed any success against the 36-year-old 6 feet 6 inches in Joshua, who was expected to weigh over 250 pounds on fight night. Okolie admitted there was a crazy difference in size and skill, but reminded listeners that crazier things had happened and said they should wait and see. When asked if he expected Joshua, who has 25 KOs from 28 wins, to finish Paul in the opening round, he said he did not think so. From what he'd gathered, AJ was unlikely to land a massive right to end it in 30 seconds. He did, however, warn that if Paul started touching Joshua, it would force a reaction.
AJ's first instinct is to go in and go double jump, uppercut, left hook to the butt. and rip into people. He likes to box. He's a natural boxer. So I think he's gonna be just going through stuff. He hasn't been in the ring for over a year. He's gonna be, popping jabs, slipping, showing a bit of skill. I think if you're Jake, you do that with him, right? You do that with him, and then when you throw your hard shot, you do it once, you get one chance. You do it once in the fight, you do it absolutely everything you have, and you hope that something happens. Because if nothing happens, it's a hard night for you, I'll be honest with you. But if you land it and get a moment, anything can happen.
Repeating his earlier point about sparring, Okolie explained that when you spar someone below your level, you can gauge how hard to hit and choose to slip, and suggested Joshua's ring rust might mean he treats the fight as an exercise. He added that if Paul clipped Joshua and didn't take him out the first time, that's when things would get interesting. Okolie said Joshua's reach and size made it difficult for an opponent to find a rhythm unless very clever punches were picked without being pushed off, and noted that they did not know what Paul's coaches were seeing. Perhaps they saw something none of them could see, and they would find out soon enough. So that's all from today's video. Stay tuned and we will catch you in the next.